My name is Reza. Once a proud officer in the Iranian army, I stood at the intersection of duty and deception. I was revered, a soldier trained to uphold a regime that intertwined faith with nationalism. But beneath the surface of respectability, a heavy weariness gripped my soul. In the oppressive shadows of Tehran, where Shia Islamic doctrine dictated lives, my spirit wrestled with an unsettling truth. I was living a lie. Then came that day, ordinary yet laced with an eerie premonition. Explosions shattered our training grounds, propelling me into darkness. It was in that abyss, that moment on the precipice between life and death, that I encountered something profound. In the quiet void, I felt the light of Jesus envelop me, a warmth I had long forsaken. His presence pierced through my doubts, wrapping me in love, yet urging me with urgency. "Reza," he beckoned, "you've been ensnared by manipulation. The truth you've known is a facade crafted by the elite, a web designed to keep humanity divided and enslaved." Visions erupted before my eyes, children crying amidst warfare, families torn apart by deception, the very device I held in my hand regurgitating lies. With each image, a resonating urgency surged within me. The spiritual war was raging, not just in distant lands but in the hearts and minds of everyday people, including those I once called comrades. "Awake," he called to me, filling my heart with an insatiable hunger to unmask the truth. "You have a voice, a story, that could ignite the light in others." As I lay amidst the rubble of my former life, the weight of this revelation pulled me back, intertwining my journey with a greater cosmic battle. I had glimpsed the depths of deception, and now I bore the burden of awakening. Was I willing to stand against the tide of manipulation that threatened to drown our very souls? In the depths of your own struggle, I invite you to share where you're watching from. What time is it as you ponder this urgent message? I want to connect with you, to understand how far this truth is reaching. And if you feel this calling to awaken, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. You won't want to miss what's coming next, a revelation that promises to illuminate the shadows, beckoning us all toward the light. As I reflect on my life as a career officer in the Iranian army, I think back to the moment when everything changed. I had long embraced my role within the military, a soldier trained to defend a regime that intertwined faith and nationalism. Yet behind the facade of devotion, I carried a profound weariness within me, a relentless conflict. I lived in Tehran, under the ever-watchful eyes of the Revolutionary Guard, where the Shia Islamic doctrine dictated every aspect of existence. There I was, a respectable figure, yet internally I felt the heavy weight of deception. The more I learned about the world around me, the more I questioned the so-called truth I was taught, and the more I began to see State Islam as a mere tool of political control. Then came that fateful day, a day like any other, yet dripping with an ominous air. I found myself in an exercise that had turned disastrous. An unexpected explosion rocked our training ground. The next moments felt like an eternity as my body was hurled through the air and darkness enveloped me. In the depths of that quiet void, something extraordinary happened. I experienced what people describe as a near-death experience, a moment where the barriers between earth and heaven blurred, and I felt myself lifted away from the chaos below. A light, pure and radiant, surrounded me, offering warmth and solace that I hadn't known in years. And then I saw him, Jesus. In that moment, all my doubts, all the fears I had kept buried deep within, came rushing to the surface. His presence radiated love, yet there was an urgency in his voice that chilled my heart. He spoke not only to me, but to the essence of humanity. "You've been living in a web of lies, Reza," he said, piercing through the illusions I clung to. "Those in power, the elite, have manipulated the truth, orchestrating a spiritual war against the souls of men. Their hidden agenda goes beyond borders. It's a division designed to keep humanity enslaved. The weight of these revelations settled over me as the deeper implications of his words unfolded. I watched as scenes of unrest played out before me, wars igniting in distant lands, children caught in the crossfire of political deception, families torn apart by the divisions crafted by those who sought power. Jesus showed me the ways in which technology was used as a tool of manipulation, how it could both connect and divide us. The very devices that brought information also obscured the truth. I realized with a sense of urgency that the struggle was not confined to armies or borders. It was a cosmic battle for our very souls. The spiritual war was manifesting in every facet of our lives, and the call for awakening rang louder than ever. In that moment, I understood that my life had been a mere reflection of the larger conflicts that plagued our world. The internal struggles I felt mirrored the chaos outside, the wrestling between faith and reality, devotion and disillusionment. But amid the turmoil, there was hope. Jesus conveyed that an awakening was possible, that truth could break through the layers of deception. "You must share what you have experienced, Reza," he implored. "Do not remain silent in the face of what is coming. Time is of the essence. The world needs voices willing to stand against the tides of manipulation that threaten to drown it." As the vision ebbed, I felt the pull of reality dragging me back. I returned to my body, lying amidst the rubble, the echoes of Jesus' words etched into my mind. It was then that I grasped the magnitude of his message. The battle continues, and I had a role to play. I was not just an officer in the Iranian army. I was a witness to a profound truth yearning to burst forth. Into a world asleep, a world desperately in need of awakening. As I journeyed through the routine of my life as a truck driver, I often took comfort in the endless stretches of the highway, the hum of the engine, the solitude that wrapped around me like a warm blanket. At 43, I was used to navigating not just the roads, but the complexities of life, raising my children while battling the relentless grind of bills and responsibilities. I never thought about the weight I carried with each delivery. On one ordinary Tuesday, however, everything changed. A careless driver, distracted by their phone, collided head-on with my rig. In that instant, the world as I knew it shattered, and I was thrust into a surreal void. As I lost consciousness, I felt myself slipping away from the physical realm, and an ethereal light enveloped me. This moment would soon intersect with unimaginable revelations. I was no longer in the cab of my truck. I was floating in a vast expanse of brilliant light, pulsating with a warmth that reached deep into the core of my being. The feelings of pain, fear, and chaos melted away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of belonging. It was then that I saw him, Jesus. He stood before me, radiating love and peace beyond any human experience. I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face, overwhelmed by the truth of his presence. In that sacred moment, I felt his gaze pierce through my soul, stripping away the layers of my past, exposing every doubt, every fear I had. He began to reveal hidden truths about our world, about the spiritual war that was being waged, not just within me, but across the entire globe. I saw visions of leaders cloaked in a web of deception, using faith to manipulate the masses while feasting on power for themselves. The elite, he explained, had orchestrated a system designed to keep humanity trapped. Endless wars fueled by greed, gaping social divides that sowed seeds of hatred, all the while masquerading under the banner of righteousness and progress. As these revelations unfolded, images replayed in my mind like scenes from a haunting film. I witnessed the destruction caused by those who pulled the strings from shadows, the suffering of innocent lives caught in the crossfire of their greed. I was shown the duality of tech advancements, where innovation was heralded as progress, while it simultaneously tightened the noose of control over our very lives. Jesus illuminated how every act of division, every story spun to create animosity among nations, was a tool of the elite, a deliberate ploy to keep us fighting among ourselves. I could feel the urgency building within me. These weren't mere abstractions, but prophetic calls to awaken and resist. Then, from the depths of that radiant light, a message boiled forth. Humanity possesses the power to rise from the ashes of division. He spoke of a world reborn, one of unity, love, and understanding, a reality waiting to be embraced if we could only shed the shackles of deception. The weight of my own existence pressed heavily upon me. How many had become mere pawns in a game of power, blind to the truth of their own divine potential? In that moment, I understood the stakes of our collective awakening. The choice was ours. Jesus challenged me with a profound responsibility to share this awakening, to confront the truths I had witnessed, and disturb the comfortable sleep of those around me. But even as fervor ignited within me, fear whispered its insidious doubts. Returning to my life, to my family, to the oppressive weight of societal norms felt daunting. The spiritual awakening I experienced danced on the edge of rebellion, teetering between divine calling and earthly consequence. I knew I had glimpsed a truth that most were unwilling to see, a truth that could disrupt lives, alter paths, and incite anger. As I drifted in and out of consciousness, I felt the urgency ignite beneath my skin. I could no longer remain silent. I was driven to shatter the comfortable facade of my life, yet every step became fraught with peril. Would my awakening serve to illuminate the dark corners of our fractured world, or would I succumb to the weight of fear and doubt that had kept others silent for so long? The visions of faith manipulated for control, the souls lost to war, these were becoming imprinted upon my heart, and no matter how hard I tried to escape their call, they pulsed with a life of their own. The battle for the truth was not merely one of ideology, but a spiritual war waged deep within, and it felt as though the moment of reckoning was fast approaching. As the light began to fade and I felt myself slipping back towards the physical world, the weight of a new reality pressed upon me, a revelation that would ripple through the lives of so many. I was returning, but the question lingered in the air. Would I stand against the tide of deception, risking everything? Or would I once again conform to the shadows that sought to engulf the light? As I navigated the chaotic streets of my hometown, memories from my past reminded me of the hopes I once held, dreams that now seemed distant. I was just an ordinary truck driver, spending long hours on the open road, trading whispers with the wind as it caressed my weary face. Yet my heart always ached for something more substantive, something many around me seemed to have given up on. It was during one of those routine trips, feeling the rhythm of the engine beneath me, that everything spiraled into a darkness I had never imagined. A flash of light, an impact, a moment of silence before the world vanished. In that instant, I found myself enveloped by an overwhelming stillness, the cacophony of life silenced. Time stretched and warped before me. I could feel the weight of my existence lift, as if my soul were being drawn away from the confines of flesh and bone. It was a disorienting yet peaceful transition, hovering between realms. A figure emerged from the shimmering mists, radiant and incomprehensibly majestic. "I am Jesus," he spoke, not with words, but with a deep whisper that resonated in my very being. "I called you by name long before you took your first breath." As his presence enveloped me, an indescribable peace filled the void within, a warmth that pierced through the darkness of my doubts and fears. In those moments, I felt every burden, every doubt, and every regret laid bare before him. He revealed to me not just the superficial layers of my life, but the hidden truths beneath the surface. the veils that had long blinded humanity to the realities of our world. I saw a spiritual war, one in which our souls were caught in the crossfire, manipulated by unseen forces embedded within our societies. The elite, those whose motives lay cloaked in deception, thrived on our divisions, nurturing the ideologies that kept us in chains. Visions unfurled before my eyes: rampant corruption, social disarray, leaders who traded souls for power, and a society that turned its back on love and unity. The technological advances we had once embraced with hope began to reveal their darker shadows, an awakening to the means by which our very consciousness was being shaped. I could feel the urgency of our time pressing upon me. This wasn't just a personal awakening. It was a collective cry for truth that reverberated in the air around us. Each revelation peeled back layers of ignorance, exposing the hidden agendas that had long manipulated the narrative of our existence. Your life is not merely your own, Jesus reminded me, as he painted the reality of our shared struggle, the impending threats looming over humanity as a result of our complacency. Awakening is not just for the few, it's a call to all. You are standing at a crossroads. The truth has been concealed, but the dawn of revelation is upon you. Look around. Do you see the suffering? The children lost amidst the shadows of despair? The weight of his words struck me with visceral intensity, a stark reminder of the responsibility that lay upon our shoulders. Yet, just as the truth seemed within reach, I felt the pull of reality dragging me back, and darkness began to edge near. Suddenly, I was thrust back to the chaos of my accident. The sirens wailed, a world of confusion and concern surrounding me. My body lay on the pavement, but my spirit lingered just above, yearning to understand the revelation still spinning in my mind. How could I integrate this experience into my life? How could I disrupt the patterns that had long held us captive in cycles of deception? Questions burned within me, too urgent to ignore, my heart racing to grasp the magnitude of the truths I had just encountered. If I remained silent, how would anyone awaken to the reality we all faced? A storm of urgency surged within me, knowing that the revelations were not mere glimpses, but a call to action. A summons to step beyond the boundaries of fear and step into the light of truth. I could feel the weight of the world's suffering pressing down on my shoulders, a reminder that my journey had only just begun. As I lay in that military hospital, feeling the weight of my near-death experience pressing down on me, I could scarcely comprehend the gravity of the moment. The chaos of the battlefield slipped away like sand through my fingers, replaced by an unsettling stillness. My friend, a fellow officer, came to visit, his face a mask of concern tinged with fear. When I shared my encounter with Jesus, his eyes widened in disbelief. The words tumbling from my lips seemed to ignite a deep-seated terror within him. "You need to be careful, Reza," he warned, glancing over his shoulder as if the walls themselves held ears. Talk like that could lead to unwanted attention. The fear in his voice was palpable, and yet I couldn't shake off the urgency that pulsed within me. My experience felt too profound to dismiss. The revelation of truth hung in the air like a thick fog. In days that followed, my superiors summoned me, questioning the suspicious statements I had made during my recovery. They demanded to know what I had witnessed, a sacred truth they deemed too dangerous for dissemination. They ordered me to return to my Islamic practices with fervor, proclaiming that my commitment to the faith was now under scrutiny. I felt their eyes boring into me, wary of the spiritual war they believed could fracture the very fabric of our society. But how could I turn my back on that divine encounter? I was being watched closely. Every thought seemed to echo back to me in a prison of disbelief. The whispers of my friend echoed in my mind, yet the memory of Jesus' words shielded me from the chill of fear. "You must awaken, Reza," he had said. Even now, his powerful presence lingered, filling me with a sense of clarity that couldn't be extinguished. I began to see the facade of our political entities, the hidden agendas woven into the very fabric of power. The elite were manipulating our lives, directing conflicts for their benefit, and we were but pawns in their game, a realization that was both liberating and terrifying. Days turned into weeks, the surveillance on me intensifying. I found myself grappling with the conflict within, a soldier trained to protect, now questioning the very foundation of our beliefs. The societal divisions around me grew sharper, more pronounced. Each headline and every report echoed the spiritual revelations I had received. Wars were being waged, not just with guns, but with the hearts and minds of the people. I watched as technology crept into our lives like a thief in the night, dulling our awareness and pulling the wool over our eyes. The deception was so intricate, so deeply rooted, that I began to understand why few ever dare to confront it. I felt as if I was standing atop a precipice, peering into an abyss filled with truths waiting to be embraced, yet the fear of judgment loomed large. Those who spoke out faced swift retribution. As I walked the hallways of the barracks, the weight of realization bore down on me. I was charged with a mission from Jesus that I couldn't ignore. The urgency of awakening the souls around me bore into my conscience. I saw leaders within our government turning a blind eye to the pain and suffering of their people, operating under a cloak of betrayal. The revelation was overwhelming, yet I was left feeling helpless, grappling with the realization that confronting such powerful forces would demand a cost I was unsure I was ready to pay. In the quiet of the night, I would lie awake, the echoes of the battlefield still fresh in my mind. The imagery of my near-death experience replayed, the visions of our world divided, a landscape torn apart by social strife and manipulation. I understood now that the truth would not surface without sacrifice. It demanded a reckoning. I couldn't ignore the mantle of responsibility that had been placed upon me. I could feel his presence enveloping me, urging me to act, to speak the truth and challenge the status quo. As I contemplated the path ahead, the tension within me grew. The time for silence was ending, and I knew I had to choose. Would I stand up for the revelations that had ignited a flame within me, or would fear bind me to a life of quiet compliance? I remember the clang of metal against metal, the jarring sound of gears grinding as I maneuvered my truck through the desolate stretch of highway. I was just a long-haul driver, living a life marked by routine, small towns, and overheard conversations on the CB radio. I thought I understood the world well enough, navigating my way through the monotonous cadence of life, shaped by the rhythm of the open road. But that day, finely tuned to the hum of the engine, everything changed. A sudden collision. Everything went black. The chaos of twisted metal and shattered glass faded into silence. I felt detached, floating above the wreckage, witnessing it all while a wave of peace enveloped me. It was then that I encountered him. In that barren expanse of consciousness, I saw Jesus, standing with a presence that radiated an unearthly light. His eyes pierced through the facades I had created, revealing layers of deception ingrained in my life. "You were asleep, drifting through illusions," he said softly, yet with an authority that resonated deep within me. "Experience the truth, for many are deceived." In that suspended moment, visions flooded my mind, scenes of wars igniting across the globe, leaders entangled in webs of manipulation, all driven by a hidden agenda that sought to divide and conquer humanity. I could feel the spiritual war raging, not just within individuals, but within societies, a conflict echoing across generations. Suddenly, I was transported through time and space, thrumming with urgency. I found myself in a war room. Shadows whispered of strategies, clandestine meetings surrounded by the elite, plotting behind closed doors while the world suffered in silence. The greed and power hunger I saw was suffocating. "They revel in deception," Jesus said, as he pointed to the screens flashing images of war and agony. "But the truth is surfacing. The awakening begins with you." I felt an overwhelming responsibility settle upon my shoulders. I had been a small part of a vast mechanism, oblivious to how deeply the threads of manipulation were woven into our lives. The vision shifted to faces lost. In despair, individuals unaware of the spiritual awakening that was desperately needed. A young mother weeping for her children, a soldier haunted by his memories, innocent souls ensnared by the lies perpetuated by those in power. I understood then that I had witnessed the truth of our existence, and with that truth came a disturbing clarity. The tragedies were not mere coincidences. They were the consequence of ignorance, fueled by the apathy of those who refused to see. The revelation struck me with the force of a freight train. Our shared humanity was bleeding under the weight of conflict and division, yet here I was, standing at the threshold of a choice, a chance to bring forth the light. As I looked into the eyes of Jesus once more, the warmth of his loving gaze ignited a fire within me. "You are the voice they seek. Awaken, rise, and bear witness," he urged. I could feel the battle raging throughout my soul, tugging at the core of who I had been versus who I was now being called to be. I had never before considered the connections between our struggles and the spiritual dimension lurking beneath the surface. My life had revolved around driving to destinations, oblivious to the vast tapestry of experiences that intertwined us all. But now, the truth I had seen became a relentless drumbeat, demanding expression, propelling me to confront the darkness around me with newfound intensity. As I descended back to that hospital bed, the memories of my near-death experience etched into my psyche. Every breath felt like a call to action. The reality I returned to felt saturated with shadows, yet I could no longer ignore the light. Words of warning lingered in my mind, a directive to shake off apathy and engage with the world. I could still hear the echoes of Jesus' voice, urging me to transcend the ordinary and embark on this perilous journey towards awakening. Yes, the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but as I gazed outside at the restless clouds gathering, gnawing at me like an unquenchable thirst for truth, I knew I had to step into the light. Let the world watch as I began to fight a battle far more significant than any I had faced before. What would this awakening lead me to? What revelations awaited in the darkness? I found myself staring into the abyss of existence, a simple truck driver, accustomed to the rhythmic hum of the road beneath my wheels and the quiet solitude of the long highway. I had a routine, a life defined by the intermittent, stops at small-town diners, and the comforting familiarity of my rig. Yet, that ordinary existence unraveled on a fateful night when a tire blew out on a treacherous turn, sending my truck careening into the unseen. In that split second, everything froze. Time itself seemed to collapse as I was thrust into an overwhelming void. In those fleeting seconds, as consciousness slipped away, I felt as though I was transported to another realm, where colors took on new dimensions, and light enveloped me like a warm embrace. I was met by an undeniable presence. It was Jesus. His gaze pierced through the veil of my being, revealing the truths I had long ignored. I stood before him, stripped of my earthly burdens, and there, in that sacred moment, I was shown the intricacies of a hidden agenda that shaped our world. I understood then that the illusion of safety and certainty we cling to is a mere shadow cast by our fears and by those in power who thrive on the delusions of the masses. Through his eyes, I witnessed a spiritual war raging far beyond our perception, a battle that played out in the hearts and minds of humanity. I saw leaders whose decisions echoed with the weight of deception, manipulated by shadowy forces unseen to the naked eye. There was an urgency in his voice as he revealed the intricacies of societal division, how fear is wielded like a weapon to create rifts in families, communities, and nations. The faces of politicians morphed into masks, puppets, dancing to a tune of chaos designed to keep the truth hidden from the people. The vibrant fabric of society unraveled before me, threads pulled by the elite, leaving a tapestry of discord and despair. As the vision deepened, I felt the sting of an awakening, the call to rise within me. It was not simply a personal mandate, but a mission to reach out to others caught in the murky depths of confusion and despair. I was flooded with a sense of purpose, guided to share these revelations, to awaken those hardened by indifference and disillusionment. I began to see faces, soldiers much like me, shaped by societal expectations, shackled by the limitations set upon them by an oppressive system. The weight of their struggles pressed heavy on my soul, a reminder of our shared humanity and the fight we must embrace against the prevailing darkness. I found myself in a new reality, where my hands shook as I began to memorize scripture, carrying the words of truth like precious jewels hidden in my heart. There were no physical records of my faith journey. Instead, I stored the verses within me, ready to share them among those who gathered in the shadows, in basements, lit softly by flickering candles. It was there that the Spirit ignited something fierce within me, transforming fear into fervent prayers. Each gathering pulled me closer to a realization that was both an awakening and a painful reckoning. The stakes were higher than I had ever imagined, as we wrestled with the truth suppressed beneath layers of fear and deception. With each passing meeting, I realized the world stood at a frightening intersection. Our choices had become paramount, each decision shaping the course of our souls and our society. The whispers of the Spirit urged us, loud against the clatter of a deceived world. As I navigated this new existence, grappling with the impact of what I had encountered with Jesus, I felt the urgency grow thicker, an electric charge humming in the air, stirring an awakening that was both terrifying and liberating. There was more to uncover, more truths waiting in the dark corners of our reality. And I knew I had to press forward, plunging deeper into this revelation that could redefine not just individual lives, but the very fabric of humanity itself. I recall the evening it all transformed, a defining moment buried within the monotony of my existence. I was a father, a factory worker, immersed in the daily grind, believing my life revolved around paycheck cycles and the comforting routine of family. My life was simple, built on the foundation of hard work and the values instilled in me since childhood. I was a man of faith, yet the flickering doubts of a world dominated by chaos often clouded my perception. Little did I know, the mundane was about to collide with the extraordinary in the most unimaginable way. It was just another day at the factory when the incident occurred. Machines roared like monsters, and amidst that cacophony, one fateful moment changed. Everything. A malfunction brought forth disaster. I was thrown into darkness, the world crashing down around me as a heavy beam struck. I felt my consciousness slip away, as if drawn into a void where time and space ceased to exist. In that near-death experience, the chaos of my life faded into silence, replaced by a brilliant light that bathed my essence in warmth. And there he was, Jesus, not as a painting or distant figure, but alive, breathing, staring deep into my soul. In his presence, I experienced a sense of clarity that transcended earthly understanding. "You've been blind," he said, his voice a symphony of love and urgency. "There's a spiritual war raging, hidden from the eyes of many. The elite twist truths for power, all while the world cries out in darkness." His words pierced through the layers of my prior beliefs, revealing the extent of manipulation in society. I witnessed scenes flashing before me, political leaders feasting on chaos, decisions made behind closed doors, all while innocent lives teetered on the edge of despair. My heart pounded as I grasped the urgency of his revelation. Then, Visions of the future unfolded, stark and vivid. I saw a world torn apart by division, where technology, once heralded as a savior, became a tool of enslavement. I understood the connectivity of the online world, but from another vantage point, it became clear how it could be used to control thoughts and sprites, creating an illusion of freedom while stripping away truth. I witnessed people chained to screens, unable to comprehend the larger scheme at play. Each image felt like a warning, igniting a deep-seated desire to fight against this wave of deception. I had been oblivious, but now, a fire ignited within me, pushing me to rise against the shadows consuming our lives. As the sacred encounter deepened, I felt the weight of responsibility upon my shoulders. I was no longer just a bystander. I became a soldier in this spiritual warfare, committed to unveiling the truths obscured by deceit. Your journey must continue, Jesus instructed, for your awakening fuels the hunger of others to seek the light. I saw those like me, caught in the snares of life, and knew my purpose was now interwoven with theirs. Every interaction, every whisper of faith could spark their awakening. I felt compelled to share my insights, to alert others to the deceptions cloaked in societal norms. It wasn't merely about me anymore. It was a call to arms, to bring others into the fold of truth. And as I pulled away from that luminous encounter, I felt the pull of reality beckoning me back. Pain surged through my body, reminding me of the world I would return to, the factory, my duties, and the mundane conversations that never touched on the urgent spiritual state of our existence. I awoke with newfound clarity, my heart racing with the weight of the revelation gifted to me. I realized I hadn't returned to life by chance. It was a divine appointment, a second chance to ignite a movement of awakening among those still swathed in darkness. How could I keep silent when there was so much at stake? I felt the breath of Jesus behind me, urging me forward into a disturbing yet necessary reckoning. I emerged from that darkened veil, filled with an unshakable urgency, yet the threat of consequences loomed. Sharing these truths meant resistance against the very fabric of the oppressive society I once served. Would they understand? Would they turn away? Blinded by their own confines. The elite had perfected their deception, and I could feel their eyes lurking, perpetual dichotomies of faith and fear battering against my resolve. But I knew there was no turning back. The truth I had witnessed must transcend my fears. All that remained was to step out, to confront the shadows and bring others into the light. All in the name of the truth I now bore within me. I was leading what I thought was a normal life, waking up early, working on a construction site each day, sweating and laboring for my family. My name is Amir, and I was just another hard-working man, an ordinary father trying to make ends meet. Yet, in the midst of my routine, there was a growing darkness. I often felt something gnawing at my soul, a vague sense of unfulfillment that I couldn't fully comprehend. It was the kind of feeling that kept me up at night, sparking questions I didn't know how to voice. Were we truly free? Was the life I had built on simple routines a genuine reflection of what our existence should be? Or was there a hidden agenda at play, one that transformed us into mere cogs in a larger machine? The day everything changed didn't feel extraordinary at first. I was driving home after a long day's work when an unexpected car crash turned my world upside down. In that instant, metal crumpled like paper, and I was thrown into darkness. I felt my consciousness slipping away, as though I was being pulled down the corridors of oblivion, where thoughts, memories, and the weight of my existence began to dissolve. It was terrifying, yet oddly calming, as if I was being released from the shackles of this world. The moment stretched into an eternity, until against all odds, I awakened in a realm of blinding light. I stood surrounded by an overwhelming presence, a love like nothing I had ever known, and there, amidst the brightness, was Jesus. He looked at me, and I felt every burden of my life fall away, leaving behind a pure, untainted clarity. There was so much to say, so many questions I wanted to ask, but his gaze pierced through all pretense, inviting me to listen instead. In that transcendent moment, he revealed truths that shook the very foundations of my understanding. "You live amidst deceptions," he said softly. "Crafts woven by the elite that seek to distract you from recognizing your own power and potential." Through this encounter, I was shown the ticking clock of humanity's fate. I witnessed flashes of division across the world, families torn apart, communities lost in conflict, and leaders sowing discord instead of unity. It struck me how the spiritual war we engaged in was deeply laced with manipulation. The powers at play designed to incite fear, the lies whispered to turn neighbor against neighbor, were all part of a grander scheme to hold souls captive. The realization churned inside me like a tempest. Had I too been a product of this paradox, pivoting between loyalty to a hollow regime and the innate yearning for truth? Jesus unfolded before me the deeply interwoven fabric of technology and society, a tool that explicitly brought connection, yet also bred isolation. He illuminated how our reliance on devices could mislead us further from genuine relationships, making us forget the essence of humanity, organic connection with each other and with the divine. I watched as future generations, weighed down by the distractions of modern life, lost sight of their spirit, inhabiting a reality molded by headlines and screens rather than love and community. The pulse of urgency surged within me. We stood upon a precipice, facing an awakening or a further descent into chaos. In that moment of revelation, I yearned to break free from the grips of my past and the illusions I had lived within. Jesus told me then, "You have a choice. You can return to your life and be a messenger, a beacon of truth for those caught in the shadows of deception." His voice resounded through the very core of my being, igniting a flame of purpose, setting me on a path I had never anticipated. I realized that my journey was not merely about personal salvation, but about awakening others to this profound truth, that no regime could extinguish the light of Jesus. As the darkness receded, I felt the pull back to my world, to my family, and to the mission that awaited me. And as I slipped back into the confines of my broken body, I could still hear his voice lingering, a promise of something greater yet to be revealed. As I sit here reflecting on the profound journey I've shared with you today, I can't help but feel this deep, gnawing urgency within me. What if this isn't just a story? What if it's a window into a reality that intertwines us all, beckoning us to rise and confront the veils of deception woven into our lives? In those moments of quiet contemplation, the weight of a spiritual war unfolds beyond the chaos of this world, a war that transcends borders, that plays out in hearts and souls. Each one of us is called to awaken to the truth, but are we ready to respond? The experience I lived through illuminated the shadows that hide the greater scheme at play. There are forces among us, an elite few working tirelessly to sow discord and keep humanity divided. You might feel this in the depth of your own struggles, questioning the very foundation of what you've been taught. Have you felt that urge to break free from the chains of complacency? Have you found yourself at the crossroads of doubt and belief? Your story, just like mine, could inspire others to unmask the truth. I want to hear from you. What realizations have led you to question the status quo? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's ignite a conversation that reverberates beyond our individual experiences. If you found resonance in what I'm saying, if you feel that pull towards a larger truth, please don't forget to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit that notification bell. Your subscription isn't just a click. It's a connection to a community ready to embark on this journey together, delving deeper into the revelations that await us. The next video I'll share will unveil more astonishing testimonies that could further awaken our collective consciousness. You'll want to witness it. As we navigate this turbulent landscape together, let's remember, the whispers of truth grow louder when we actively seek to share them with the world. I'm honored to walk this path with you, and I invite you to join me as we explore the light that shines against the darkness. I'm Hamza. Thank you for your time today. Remember, we are all part of something greater, an awakening waiting to unfold.